You're listening to the Wolverine and the Warthog, Chronicles of the Wild podcast. Two hunters from opposite ends of the earth, united by instinct, driven by the wild. These are our stories. Okay, well, I think I'm going to start this out a little bit with a bit of an introduction to Connor and have you tell us a little bit about yourself and get some of the 5 followers that that already know us.
Yeah.
Tell everyone else a little bit about where you're from, how you grew up, your story here in Rocky Mountains.
Okay. So my grandpa and grandma packed everything up from Farmersville, Ohio, in about the mid-'60s, and my grandpa wanted to come be an outfitter in the West. So picked up his family. My dad was about, I think he was 2, 3 at the time, something like that. They moved out here, and they bought a house south of town here, which is now surrounded by other houses and stuff. It was a dirt road. They had horse property out there.
What year are we talking here?
Probably 65-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. So, real young when my dad came here. My grandpa really didn't know, anything about the mountains, and we kind of talked last time about how we have all this access to information. There's nothing, right? Nothing to tell you how to run an outfit, what kind of game is here. We look back at the 60s now and be like, that was the heyday.
Epic time to be here. And
Super
where is
jealous.
here specific?
Gunnison, Colorado.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So this has been my dad's home his whole life, my home my whole life, and now my kids' home. And I don't plan on leaving. Most people that grow up here, they kind of look at it, they don't appreciate what the value is for what it is. So when you're growing up here, everybody wants to go somewhere bigger, go somewhere different than what they're used to. Typically people go somewhere and then they find out, like, I had it pretty good.
Just like any small town,
Totally.
they kind of imagine that there's maybe some greener grass on the other side of the ridge, but
there's not.
the valley is a pretty cool place. And then, of course, I ended up here about a decade ago, married a lady from here. So here we are. Connor and I have been friends for a long time and dived into the hunting side of things. Okay, so your grandparents, what were they doing? Farmers before? Or not even in that scope?
No, not even in that scope. I mean, they own property, that they like small little farms and stuff like that. But my great grandpa worked in a factory for the Chevrolet factory. Okay. And my grandpa who moved out here, he worked in the factory for like a year, and he was like, hated it, absolutely hated it. He's wanted to be on horseback, kind of what we talked about, with that romance of the West. Yeah. I mean, like your grandpa's reading Louis L'Amour in South Africa. My grandpa's reading Louis L'Amour in Ohio, thinking the same thing. Right. And so they came out here. My dad never wanted to leave. He started guiding hunts for my grandpa's Sawtooth Mountain Outfitters is what it was called. Okay. And my dad started working for him at like 10, 11 years old, started guiding hunts at like 13, 14, which is wild to me to think about, guiding a grown man at 14 years old. But,
and I'm assuming back in this time period, we're talking horseback camps, tented camps.
Yeah.
Packing people or packing in a camp, setting up in an area, bringing clients in. Yeah. What are you guys hunting?
Elk and mule deer.
Okay.
And that was when it was over the counter for both. Okay. So you could kind of buddy up. They had an elk season, and then they had a deer season, and then they had a combined season. And that was it. Okay. No archery seasons, no muzzleloader seasons, no different rifles besides those two. Those were the only seasons. So my dad would go to school for the month of September, and then he would get his homework and all of his work for October, November, and he wouldn't go to school for 2 months while he was guiding hunts. And they both got to the point, my grandpa and my dad, and I got to this point as well in my guiding career where they were over it. you know, like it was a way to make a living. But my dad said he remembers the day that they sold the outfit as one of like the happiest days. Cause I mean, he's working hard there from 12 years old, you know.
And that's an interesting thing that I was exposed to a little bit as well in South Africa with that whole industry. And you hear the story a lot. It goes one of like three different ways. In you're passionate about the outdoors, you're passionate about the hunting, but there's this blend of like your passion having to make a viable business and income out of it, and what you have to trade off, you know, to really make that work. And with some people, they can get over some of these kind of challenges, you know, that just might go against the grain a little bit, and they can make it work, make a career out of it.
For the Clarks, and others didn't work. Yeah. I mean, we're like my grandpa, my dad, my brother, and I are all retired guides.
You guys have all guided. Yeah. Hey, that's valuable. There's also a part of that you probably wouldn't know what you knew now without that experience, you know, and the mix of experience having, you know, I mean, guiding back in the late 60s through the 70s and 80s is kind of a different world than it is now, for sure, in all aspects, actually, including the season structures and the equipment availability and the accessibility for people to come here. Well, that's cool, man. That's interesting.
And this kind of gives a perspective of what the deer herd was like at this time. When my dad was about 12, he said they were setting up camp or they were out with hunters or something. And he's like, he knows deer, obviously. My dad knows mule deer. And he's like, I found a deadhead that was massive. And his dad, my grandpa, wouldn't let him pick it up.
No kidding.
Because the antlers are worth nothing at that point, right? I mean, they're valueless.
That's valuable space on the pack horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he said that he sees this thing and he's like, I'm telling you, this thing's 260 all day. And I am just fighting my dad, like, please let me bring it out. Please let me bring it out. He's like, no, it stinks, blah, blah, blah. We're not bringing that thing out. I don't want to clean it when we get home. So my dad, I mean, he said he's on like the verge of tears because my dad has always been an antler lover. Like it didn't matter that they weren't worth anything, but he's like, please let me bring it. So they brought it back out, strapped it to the top of the old Bronco that they had. And he told my dad, he said, that thing's never coming in the house. So you can bring it home. It's just not coming in the house. So he put it in his mom's flower garden. And it was about 8 years ago, maybe, my grandma was moving out of that house. And my dad's like, I put it in that flower garden. So I started digging. Digging through there. I want to see what was left. Turns out there's about 9 inches of bases and just like
beer cans.
So that's the kind of deer we're talking about in the 60s that could get to 8, 9 years old, you know, but you're talking about the total difference in technology. I mean, weapons not near as effective as they are now. My dad didn't even get his first pair of binoculars or spotting scope for like a long time, right? I mean,
sure.
And now that's a standard. You don't have a spotting scope, you're way behind, you know?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we can dive off the deep end into the changes of all of that. I'm going to back you up a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, we got some people watching. Got a couple of small mule deer here in the background, you know. So after the guiding thing, obviously your dad had a passion for big mule deer, antlers in general. And honestly, I mean, from my perspective, anyone who's been to Gunnison, who's been in Traders Rendezvous here in Gunnison, has amassed a legacy of an unreal collection, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, possibly one of the most unique collections in North America and quite possibly the world in regards to big mule deer, cool old guns, traps. I mean, you name it, there's stuff hidden. It's like a gem. So how did that all come about?
I mean, obviously he just had that love for antlers, right? I mean, he just felt like that was, I don't know that he felt like that's what he's going to do, but he talked about when he was a kid, his dad in the spring, he'd saddle a horse for him and he'd saddle a pack horse for him and he'd send him out. My dad would just go riding and pick up sheds. And he said, as soon as I'd fill up the pack horse, I'd just go dump it in the yard and then I'd go back out. And he said he'd just do that, you know, for months on end. And so how he finally figured out there was a market for it was Don Schaffler, he's like one of the original antler buyers. One of his buyers was in Gunnison, and saw a pile of antlers sitting in his parents' yard, and was like, "Can I buy those from you?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, sure." You know, it's probably 10 cents a pound or 25 cents a pound or something like that, and he ended up selling the whole thing for, you know, $150. Yeah, he said it was just like heaped like a Volkswagen, you know, and he was like, "There's a market for this." And I think he kind of, I don't know that he did it on purpose, but the foresight to get these deer at a time where they weren't worth anything, right? I mean, all these mule deer, these could have ended up in the dump, these could have ended up, but this is over 100 years of mule deer history, almost specifically in Colorado. Like we have stuff from Arizona, New Mexico, Idaho, Wyoming, but the majority of these are from Colorado, and it's kind of like a log of history. I mean, I got one behind me right now that they can't see that's like 1890s killed in Telluride, which is an hour and a half away from here. And I mean, just massive deer. So from 1890 all the way to current day.
Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar with, you'll hear us refer to it as the valley, the basin. It's the basin. Yeah. Sorry, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, world-renowned mule deer country historically has produced some of the biggest mule deer in the world and continues to. And it's unique. It's just one of those places that, and some of you will know, Gunnison, Colorado, mule deer, big mule deer. You can go to the other end of America, tell them you're from Gunnison, Colorado, and if it's a hunter, you'll be like, there's big mule deer there.
But that also gives off unreal expectations. You know, we always joke about when hunters come into this store,
of course,
before their season, it's like, this isn't the 60s, you know, even the early 2000s, like it's just not the same.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, hunters will be able to relate to that all over the world, especially if they've been in an area that has and holds a unique world-class species, right? I mean, and not only that, just a wilder time, more accessibility, less people doing it, of course, right? It's like back in the day in South Africa, the old ivory hunters and the crazy stories they told where it was free reign, you know, back in some of that. But we don't live in those times now, you know? But anyway, okay. Do you recall when so it really started as an antler collecting, buying, and selling business. It then developed into what's now Trader's Rendezvous as a store. Yeah. When did this get established?
So my grandpa owned a pawn shop here, like a normal pawn shop with like bikes and TVs and, you know, had some guns and stuff. But my dad bought the pawn shop from him and was like, had this love for antlers, mounts. And then my grandpa he was gunsmith, very into guns. So my dad already kind of had that background of, you know, collectible, historical Winchester guns and stuff. So that's what he started with. He started with something he loved. You know, he loved the old traps. He loved just that romance of the Wild West that you're talking about. And he made a living out of it, which is crazy to think about. You know, it's, and so this is the world that I grew up in. I know nothing else, right? I mean, I don't know, like I knew antlers from a baby. And same way with my kids. Like it's hilarious seeing them come in and just, they'll tell adults things about species that kids should know at 5 years old, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I'm just in processing that, I kind of think about, you know, you're a certified Boone and Crockett measurer, but not only that, you know, to have just literally hundreds and thousands of antlers pass under your nose and your dad.
Yeah.
Talk about what an amassed experience of, you know, it's one thing for me to look at something and say, hey, this is in the range of X and X.
Yeah.
You know, which is a pin drop in the pond of, you know, your understanding of like what you've seen and what actually makes an animal unique and what contributes to its score and stuff like that, which is fun. And I think we'll get into that
for sure
more and more, because there's some really interesting discussion to be had there.
Definitely.
Both from the uniqueness perspective, what was and what is now, you know, it's going to be fun to kind of explore that.
Yeah, definitely.
Given that knowledge base. Okay. Well, the hunting side of things, growing up as a kiddo, obviously granddad was keen. Those guys were keen.
Yeah.
Your dad probably started you guys hunting from a young age.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
First of all, yeah, my dad, my grandpa helped me, but I'm going to give credit to my mom. My mom is not a hunter. The only reason I want to give credit to my mom is because she offered a bounty on chipmunks when we were kids. They ate her flowers. She didn't like them eating her flowers. My mom has a massive flower garden. So she told me and my brother, 25 cents a chipmunk. So I would sit out for
Little incentive.
hours and hours hunting chipmunks. And so when I have the patience to like do the hunts I want now, I'm always like, that was my mom. Cause I baited them and I'd crunch some Tostitos chips on a hill and I'd just sit there. And
how old are you guys now, you and your brother?
Probably about 5 and 7
Youngsters.
But I don't know. I think we had it even younger because I remember one of my really strong memories of my brother. He's 3 years older than me. We were on a family antelope hunt in northwestern part of Colorado. So we're up by Baggs, Wyoming, Craig, Colorado, and my grandma. We had a pop-up camper up there. Everybody went hunting. They left me, my brother, and my grandma in the pop-up camper to play games or whatever, you know. And my brother has his pellet gun outside, and at that point, I don't think I was trusted with a pellet gun yet because I think I was like 3, so I was pretty young. And my brother's outside, and he sees a rattlesnake outside of the camper. Well, my family is deathly, like unhealthily afraid of any kind of snake, right? So my grandma hears there's a snake outside, and she's bunking down, dude. She's not going to exit out of that trailer. She's not going to look at that thing. So I remember my brother had his pellet gun, and I just stood behind him and just cheered him on he probably put 50 pellets and that thing just kept shooting it and shooting it and shooting it and shooting it. And I just remember that just like standing behind him. It was like kind of fun. It was kind of exciting. And my dad, when they finally got back, my dad, my grandpa, none of them would skin it for him. So we had one of our friends from Oklahoma who I still hunt with to this day.
Okay.
And he was like, "You got to be kidding me, Randy. Like you're not going to let Casey bring home that skin that he got." So he skinned it all out. This was a funny story. I just learned this year. So as he's skinning it out, he's doing it on my dad's tailgate. My dad loves his trucks, right? Doesn't like snakes, loves his trucks. So he's skinning it on the tailgate. He used every ounce of camp water they had
to wash the tailgate
off. And so he had to go back into town to get more camp water for everybody because he had to get that snake blood off. But my brother had that in his room, like hanging on a piece of barnwood for a long time. But yeah, so that's just kind of how we grew up. But that was something we did, right, as a family.
Yeah, it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's just what you guys did.
Yeah. And I didn't have friends that did it, right? So it was like, that was what we did. That was, like you said, part of life. But I didn't really vocalize it to anybody else because none of my other friends did it. So as I was growing up, I continued to do that. You know, at 12 years old, that's when we were allowed to hunt in Colorado. My dad took us up to Wyoming to hunt antelope, which I think is an awesome first animal hunt for a kid. Because, you know, there's elk hunts around here that you can't bring a 12-year-old on. You're going to ruin them. You know what I mean? If they're not real hard, tough kids, you have a really good chance of ruining those kids by hiking around for 5 days and not seeing an animal, you know? They may not see the fun in it, the purpose in it. So I feel like that was a pretty awesome hunt because it was like I blew stocks, I did whatever, but I had another opportunity. It wasn't just that one opportunity that I was going to get. So I was able to get an antelope under my belt despite my greenness, you know?
Yep.
And so that was pretty cool. We did that when I turned 12. And that was the same year I killed my first elk and my first mule deer. So I killed all 3 that year. Mule deer was a voucher. And like I talked about, that was when you could buy one for a decent price. Now, good luck, guys. better dig deep into that bank if you want a voucher now.
He's talking about buying a hunting license that's allocated to a private property owner. Part of the draw pool is split to like a lottery system that has a point system structured, but landowners, if you hold enough land, you can get a hunting license, and some of those license, the property owners can give them away or sell them to somebody else.
And they're 10% of whatever tags allocated. So
for that species in the specific unit, etc.
For that season, yep.
And we'll I mean, a lot of you guys will be familiar with this, and there's no need to reiterate it, but at some point we'll go through kind of the structure of how things work here in the United States, because it's very different from South Africa.
Definitely.
In regards to,
yeah. And each state is
all different parts of the world, you know, on how that's structured and where you can hunt and where you can't hunt and so on and so forth. Well, that's awesome, man. That's fun. Okay, so now you guys are teenagers. Your dad's kind of got you guys hooked, both obviously, because Casey started to kind of get into it as well. And ultimately, you know, stretched out, ended up in Alaska guiding, did some sheep hunting, some adventurous mountain hunting. Yeah, he spent a bunch of time guiding in New Zealand, which I've spent some time in New Zealand, but haven't got to hunt there, and it's epic. I mean, it really is some really cool country. Yeah. I wish I'd have explored that and a little more when I had my time in Australia, but I was busy. I know I really was just hop across the pond, but hindsight's 2020.
We did have a fallow hunt booked. Speaking of 2020 pre-COVID, we were going to go to New Zealand and you know, couldn't do that anymore. But yeah, so that was, and I think my brother was definitely more into it. Like I was very heavy into athletics, you know, of all sorts.
Yeah, team sports in school. And
so I remember, you know, driving to Aspen, which by bus is like 5 hours, right? I mean, it's right there, but it's 5 hours away. I remember playing a 7:00 football game on Friday night in Aspen. And I remember driving back, getting home at like 3 a.m. and waking up to go hunt at 5:30 or 6 or whatever it is, you know? And like I said, that's one of those things. I didn't tell my buddies. I didn't ask my buddies to go out with me. Like that's just that's what we did. You know,
it's kind of like growing up in South Africa. It wasn't like, I mean, when you're just exposed to it, that is just the norm.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
However, it does get to the point where you get pretty serious about it. You get pretty passionate about it. So, at what point in your kind of teen years, or maybe later, where you're hunting, and then there was just a moment in time, there was an experience or something that was just like, okay, I'm all in now. That
it happened for sure, because I think so. I went to college to play football. I got a scholarship to the university here in town to go play football, and that was still my number one priority. Okay. Like I still wanted to hunt, but that was my number one priority. Got another concussion, and that one was way more than I should have had. And after going to the neurologist and everything like that, they're like, okay, you can get the best helmet that money can buy. You won't be able to play still for a year. You can play with that helmet after a year. And I was like, I obviously know I'm not going to the NFL. So I was like, that dream is over. So I made the decision to give up football. And that year I had a third rifle deer tag. So that was my first draw tag that I was able to get. So I'm like 19 years old. Yeah. 19 years old. So I had seven points on that. Me and my dad killed a nice buck, 30-inch wide. I mean, big. He's basically a 3-point. He's a 4x4 with no eye guards, but he has no front fork. So he's got a inline back forks and then just a main beam, just a big framey, super cool buck. So it hadn't even really hit me at that point yet, right? Like that was kind of my first hunt outside of athletics. I think when it really, really hit me was the next fall. I drew a muzzleloader elk tag, and I'd never hunted in September. Okay. My family is rifle through and through, gunsmiths, rifle collectors, just gun nuts, right? So my dad had hunted muzzleloader before, and so he hooked me up with his muzzleloader, and that was my first experience, like backpacking alone, like just camping. Like I'm pretty close. I was pretty close. I did more of like a truck camp. But that was my first experience, like doing that by myself. And I think what really hooked me in was I hiked up in the morning. I saw a big bull. Like, I mean, for where we're at, 330 bull, I mean, big 6 boy. Had like 8 or 9 cows with him. He's like 1,000 yards away. Okay. I don't know what to do.
You're by yourself?
By myself. Okay. Never hunted in September. So I take out that crappy bugle tube and I'm like, wee, just squeak on this thing. That bull turns around, looks, takes all of his cows and just goes up over the top of the mountain and goes away. And I'm like, holy crap, like that didn't work at all, you know, because I didn't really know what I was doing, especially in September. Like I had never hunted elk in the rut like that. So I think that was almost the hook moment for me because I didn't kill anything.
It's like you almost knew that you didn't know.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, at that moment, I realized how little I knew, even growing up in it.
Yeah.
I realized how little I know. And that's what started the fire. Like I was like, I'm not letting that happen again, you know? And so then the next year, I had some buddies in college that were shooting bows. I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. You know, who shoots a bow, blah, blah, blah. And got to be honest, dude, Cam Haynes, that was like right around 2012, something like that. And I remember seeing Cam Haynes and I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to this, you know? So I bought my first bow in 2014 and loved it. So that fall I had my first archery elk tag. I'd been hunting for, I mean, season's about a month long. I think I'd hunted like 17 days. No encounter. So I still don't know anything, right? Like I'm trying to learn. I just don't know anything. And one of my buddies who was going to college here, he's from Southern Colorado. He was like, he's talking to me one night and he was calling for somebody else and they just couldn't quite make it happen. And I was like, call for me one time. I was like, I won't miss. Just call for me one time. And he's like, all right, let's do it. We're going to go out, you know, tomorrow evening, whatever. So we go out. It was like a 2-mile walk in and unprovoked bull bugles. And it's like, oh, dude, it's happening. Cross the drainage, jump over to the other side. He's like, sit there. He backs up and just starts cow calling. And that thing just comes running straight in. I killed him at 3 yards.
Oh, wow.
So I drew back, shot that thing. And I'm like, that was like the lights came on. So like what made me hungry was the muzzleloader tag. What really brought me in was like that experience, you know, and I saw how my buddy operated because
so that's your first big game animal with the bow is a bull elk you and your buddy call in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see that being epic.
Yeah.
Even
it was like,
and that's epic for a lot of people, honestly. I mean, you and I are a little kind of spoiled. No, I wouldn't say spoiled. I mean, anyway.
Yeah.
It's a cool experience.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me. It doesn't matter where in the world you're from. You call in a bull and you shoot it with any weapon.
Yeah.
It is just
so
an
intimate,
unbelievable moment.
so close.
There's such a cool animal. And
I didn't know enough about bows, right? So I'm shooting, you know, Walmart arrows. I'm shooting Walmart broad. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. But as that bull's coming in, I mean, I'm standing here, buddy's behind me here. He's coming straight at me. And I'm like, I don't think this arrow can go in the front. So I actually have to wait for him to pass by me so I can hit him broadside. I mean, I hit him right there. So I could have hit him there, but I didn't know anything. So I just full draw, just waited for him. Like there's no way you can miss it well, I don't know about no way, but and he went and laid down. And what's crazy is that bull, this sounds hilarious. He's basically a 2x3. Okay. Busted up, didn't grow brows on the one side. 100% the oldest bull I've ever killed.
Oh, cool.
By far. I mean, just like ground teeth, ground ivories, didn't even grow brow tines on the one side, huge body. And it took him a while to expire.
Okay.
So that was my first experience with that as well. Because everything else you shoot with a rifle, it's like kaboom. Deal's over. You don't really have to see that.
Or it runs off and you're so far away that you're not connected to that last
You're
moment.
not, exactly. And that was like the biggest thing for me was like that connection was just insane. I've never experienced anything like that.
It is an
to this day, like I will hunt with any weapon, but you know me well enough. If it's a rifle, I'm going to try to get uncomfortably close with a rifle still. You know what I mean? Like I love that that intimacy more than
sure.
anything.
And you can get that with any weapon.
Yeah.
A bow forces you into that,
Totally.
you know, and I've had that occur as well where, you know, to get so close to something, shoot it that close, have it die like at your feet is a really special thing. I mean, it's just it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Mix of emotions and
Totally.
a total roller coaster, you know, and it is going forward. Doesn't matter how many times it happens, there's something really just amazing about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. You know, and the other part of that is so you get into that, you know, this is probably a decade ago as we sit here now.
Yeah.
You know, I get here, all my hunting initially here in the basin was archery hunting.
Yeah.
Just kind of what I was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And you and I really weren't even connected at that point, kind of just doing our thing. And I kind of watched you evolve into getting the interest into bow hunting and then kind of progressing into that.
Yeah,
and then just getting
Andy's
better and
like
better.
shooting professionally at this point. Like, yeah, I remember seeing you at one of the 3D shoots and I'm like, oh, okay, that guy's legit, you know? Yeah.
So that was fun. And then, you know, fast forward a few years here, you know, we're shooting together. Right now, you are 8 of 9 of the Colorado big game species with the bow. So kind of fun to have got into it like 10 years. I mean, you're basically 20 years old when you stop, maybe 21.
Yeah.
You know, and then you kind of went on a bit of a spree there. You kind of jumped in the deep end of that, and you know, had some really cool experiences. Also, well, the valley changed. You know, there was this reputation of just, you know, big mule deer behind every tree at one point, and there was a time, allegedly, that was the case, but it's not the case anymore. And I mean, I can't think off the top of my head anyone who's had a better track record for just big mule deer with the bow in the valley in a bunch of different in the basin of just experiences. So that's kind of fun. I mean, you've killed several really big mule deer now with your bow, and it is an epic thing. And there's a bunch of different ways to hunt mule deer with the bow as well.
Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, there's just a lot of attributes to a big mule deer that are fun. I mean, give us a memory of, I don't know, a couple of them. I mean, you've killed a bunch of big bucks now with the bow. What stands out?
I just think so like you growing up in South Africa, we talked about how that's your bread and butter, right? Spot and stock is what you did growing up. I was spot and stalking stuff, but I was spot and stalking stuff with a gun. Okay.
Yep.
Then I hunted elk before I even ever hunted a mule deer. I hunted elk like 3 years in a row. So I got like 3 elk in a row with my bow in September. And that was like, I was content doing that because of that experience. I was just blown away by the experience. Then I decided I wanted to hunt deer. Turns out I had a lot to learn, but I'm persistent. I hope I'm a quick learner because I don't want to make that same mistake twice, you know?
Let me jump in here. I remember a moment where Connor's out there. He's got a tag. He's located this big buck, and we're bouncing off each other. I'm not hunting with him, but we're communicating, you know, after hours on this, and Connor's kind of getting frustrated, and he's like, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm trying to give him some insight. Not that I know any better. I mean, we're just keen hunters, you know, and I've killed like a couple of mule deer, and I'm like, well, how many stalks have you had at this thing? You know, and Connor's like, I'm on like 16.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And you were kind of getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, man, the experience you've amassed in a couple of weeks, because sometimes when you bump a mule deer, it's the last time you bump that mule deer. You know, sometimes you get a few opportunities at it. It's rare to get a bunch of opportunities at it. And
it takes a while to like relocate them. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was figuring out. Like I may get a stock and then lose them for 2 days.
Yeah.
But if I'm persistent enough, I could typically turn them.
Well, not only that, but every failed attempt, you know, let's say you only get 2 good stalks on a mule deer in your whole season, even though you're pretty good at locating them, or you want a specific one, to have that many, you know, where you can kind of like process back, like, what did I do wrong in that situation? You know, like, how could I do this different every time? Because obviously by time 10, you're like, hey, like I'm doing something really wrong here, or I'm getting unlucky, and pieces start to kind of fall into place.
Yeah. And so as I went through like this mule deer journey, like every time it got less and less days that it took me to kill him. But like when I first started, I'm like, there's the buck, make a stock, right? Now I look at it as that's a low odds opportunity. There's no reason for me to rush that stock. Like if I have to wait a day, if I have to wait 6 hours, if I have to wait, I'm going to wait. But I just was kind of just gung ho to get in there, you know?
For sure.
And one of the things that really stuck with me was people talk about like the mule deer sixth sense, like the high country, they can just feel something like in their electromagnetic field, you know, just spidey senses. And I remember I made a great stock on this buck, the first archery buck that I killed that we were talking about. And he's bedded behind some buckbrush. I got it into like 35. Wind's perfect. I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to wait for him to stand up. So I'm watching everything play out in my head. I'm like, he stands up, he goes this way, shot. He stands up, he goes this way, shot. If he blows out of here, turns around, I got a shot there. Like I have 3 hours probably that I'm sitting that close to him waiting for him to stand up. And for no reason at all, that buck just stood up, turned around and looked at me, vitals totally covered by sagebrush, and he blew out of there, and I lost him for like 2 days after that. So that was a learning experience for me where I do not get under 60 yards from a bedded mule deer unless I can get a shot on it, right? I'd rather make that last approach when they're up because that all they're focused on right there is just staying alive. You know, they're evading predators. When they're eating, they're a little sidetracked. Everything's a little noisier, smells are a little different, but that's something I didn't know. I was like,
Sure.
if I can make a good stock with a stiff wind and sit here, he's going to stand up.
And there's variables in every situation, right? So as you get more and more experience, you start to make these assessments and calculations in your head, not only prior to the stalk, but during the stalk. I mean, there's this constant calculation of like, what about this factor? What about that factor? You know, I'm talking everything from environmental conditions to the body language of the animal to, you know, here in the mountains, we've got thermals. That's something I didn't grow up dealing with. It was you woke up in the morning, wind was coming out of the southeast. It's probably going to blow southeast all day.
Yeah.
You know, here it's like you could have 5 different wind directions in a day. And not only that, you've got these variables in the mountains that even though there is a predictable prevailing wind or thermal, there's also areas where it's going to get swirly. And we've learned a little bit more about that, even whitetail hunting. You know, whitetail hunting out of a tree stand. Yeah, and I mean everything with wind is a factor. I've got a controversial one for you here.
Okay.
Big mature mule deer. You talked about sixth sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what's coming.
Yeah.
Big mature mule deer. Big mature whitetail. Which one has a better sixth sense?
This is the difference, is their tactics to evade predators much different, right? So I think they're both equally intelligent. I know all the whitetail guys are like, no, mule deer, just stand there and look at you. I dare you to go to the high country and try to kill one with your bow. September. They go from being one of the smartest animals in September to one of the dumbest in December, okay? But their tactics are much different. So how I've really learned to appreciate whitetail is they approach every situation with the utmost care. I mean, they're just the most careful animal I've ever been around.
The big whitetail bucks.
The big whitetail bucks, because they come in. When I was hunting this year, I was the first one to hunt that tree stand in, I forget what I told you, like 8 years or 10 years or something like that. So there has not been one single person in that tree stand for 10 years. That is more than a generation of deer. That's probably 2 generations of deer, right? Easily. So as they're coming in, they're stopping and they're surveying and they're looking up. The does, everything. And that is just mind-blowing to me because I don't know how they know to look up there, right? So I do have to give whitetail that. They approach that situation more careful than anything else. If you see a mule deer fawn, if you're out hiking, horseback riding, whatever, and you see a fresh mule deer fawn, what's he going to do?
It's just sadistal.
Are probably going to step on him, right? You're not going to see him until you're right on top of him. Mature bucks do that same thing as well. We've watched hikers walk 30 yards above a giant mule deer, and they have no idea he's down there.
For sure. I was hoping you'd give us a more controversial answer than that, but you're right.
Yeah,
And
I just think it's different.
It is. I've seen big whitetail, and I've heard of stories of big whitetail hiding just the same way.
Yeah.
And I've also seen some South African animals hide the same way. And I know what you mean about their demeanor. I feel like the whitetail bucks are very edgy. They are like constantly in this very stressed out.
I was going to say, what a
which also
stressful
makes
life.
them really fun to hunt, right?
Yeah.
Because you bleed off that sense. When you get close to a big whitetail buck and he is acting extremely nervous, it makes you nervous. You just bleed that same energy right out of them, which is kind of exciting. And then the mule deer, they're I guess it's a bit more mysterious, right? Because you've got this big bedded buck, he's chilled out, he's majestic, and he's bedded, but he knows something else is going on,
right?
Even though he's not letting up on it.
Yeah, and they'll let you. I mean, kind of you were talking about, like a bird dog getting on a pheasant until like its nose is on it. It's not going to flush. Mule deer are much like that. Big bucks. So if you're talking about a 2-3-year-old buck, whitetail, mule deer, doesn't matter. They just don't have the experience to be super keen on what they're doing, right? So if you got a 3-year-old mule deer buck, bedded in the buck brush, you're up above him, wind's good, you take a rock, you throw it down there, he's going to stand up and he's going to do the old turn around on you. You do that to a 6-year-old buck, he will never go in that basin again. Never. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference is they're totally, I get what you're saying. And 4 years ago, I'd have told you mule deer all day, but I have enough experience with whitetail now. I watched this year too. So I had 7 bucks coming in and I've been watching them on camera, and on camera, you can't really tell how they approach the situation, right? They're either there or they're not. So you can't see how they approach it. I watched those bucks by age go to that feeder. So the big ones, the older ones stay in the back. They send the guinea pig. Guinea pig goes out.
Sacrificial lamb.
Second one goes out. So they went in order, which I was blown away by that, to see they were sacrificing that buck to make sure it was safe, and that buck was okay with it because he knows he's kind of low on the totem
pole. Seen the
pole.
Same thing on food plots, where you'll see a buck get to the edge of the timber and stand there and watch that plot for like half an hour while there's 50 other deer on
exactly.
it.
Is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe?
Yeah, it's fun. Lots of variables.
And this kind of, so when I get some very interesting people in the store, and one group of people that I had, they were net gunners. So they are pilots from New Zealand. So he's a helicopter pilot from New Zealand, and these net gunners come from wherever, all across the states. They're contracted by the state agencies to do trapping wherever, from Alaska all the way around to Collar.
They're some of the wildest dudes you'll ever meet.
Crazy. And it's awesome. I really feel like I missed my calling with that. But I was asking the net gunner because he's showing me all these videos, and he had one video where these 2 wolverines had been chasing a caribou for like 6 hours in a figure 8, and they just packed down a highway chasing this caribou to exhaustion, coming from different directions just to wear that thing out to where they could kill it. So I'm thinking about him trapping moose, sheep, wolverines, like whatever. He's doing all of it. I'm like, what's the hardest animal to shoot out of a helicopter? He's like, you're going to laugh. And I was like, what? He's like, mule deer fawn. And I'm like, seriously? He's like, 100%.
Oh,
He's
really?
like, because whitetail, you can get them running in a line. Like when they're leaving the situation, they're leaving the situation. He's like, those mule deer fawns, there is no rhyme or reason to what direction they're going to go.
I mean, you've also got, the whitetail, and the whitetail itself is a signal for another white, and it's an alert, it's a flag.
Yeah.
And so the young are following that flashing whitetail's tail as it comes up, which I guess with mule deer don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And they've got the blow, that the mule deer, like I've never heard a mule deer really blow, like that. Cause it's pretty when it's 2 mile an hour wind and a doe starts blowing, everything knows for a ways, and I don't know. I just have learned to love them equally, for their own unique qualities,
I know. Yeah, they are awesome. And I'd love to experience the other thing with whitetail is they exist in such a broad range across the United States, like from swamps to giant hardwoods to sand dune country out in the
desert,
which is kind of
timber.
and so even though you've got the same species just by geography, it's the same thing. If you put you've got plains mule deer, and then you've got these big high country bucks that are living in a beautiful secluded basin, yeah, fun, man.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've learned about myself is I'm just a deer guy. I'm not a mule deer guy. I'm not a whitetail guy. I'm a deer guy. I love hunting elk. I love hunting basically anything, but for some reason, those are the ones that they got to me. They totally got to me. So
okay, yeah, for sure. Makes sense. We're gonna dive into all kinds of mule deer stuff because we've got a lot of friends of ours here. A lot of history of killing mule deer. We've had a lot of fun experiences with mule deer. My first mountain hunt ever was that mountain hunt that Nigel and I came out for, got our backpacking stuff. First time, here we go, put everything on our backs, and in we go for a week. And, we go in there and we pull a nice buck out of there. It was epic. It was just an epic adventure. And even without killing a buck, it was an epic adventure.
Yeah, totally.
Which is what I love about hunting different places. Once you're just so immersed in the whole thing, there is a part of the adventure of, and for me, it's always been a full circle as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just about an animal specifically. It's kind of fun having grown up and being like, I'm going to go to the U.S. I remember even going to Texas for the very first time with a bunch of traditional guys. We're going to hunt pigs and javelina.
Yeah.
And it's the practice, the preparation for that, the excitement of the logistics to get there. Then you get on the hunt, you meet the people on the hunt, you experience it, you experience a new species.
Yeah.
You then come back and there's just after every hunt, you're always just making this never ending assessment of what you would do if you ever got that opportunity again.
Yeah.
Or you're visualizing in the event I do get an opportunity, how am I going to act in that? All the way to reminiscing about it afterwards, telling the story about it. It's kind of like this whole circle, that comes around.
And one thing that I realized that I really like doing is getting out of my comfort zone, right? So I've developed enough as a hunter where archery hunting elk is very much in my comfort zone. Archery hunting deer is very much in my comfort zone. When Andy and I and our friend Drew, we drew a hunt. I'm not even going to tell you where it was, but we drew a hunt for whitetail. And I had never hung a stand. Right?
Oh yeah.
So
that was awesome.
So I hunted whitetail, but I just show up like a princess, stands are hung, feeders are going, whatever. And we're going to a place that is no feeders, low fence. You have very little time to get this done. You're hunting with not a great weapon. And
blind. You're completely unknown area.
Yeah.
You're just going completely blind.
You just show up and just hope for the best. And that was awesome because I realized when that was so far out of my wheelhouse that I was like, holy crap, I have so much to learn. And that's kind of when I started diving into whitetail, was realizing how much I have to learn. On the first day, they tell you, all right, you got 4 hours. You have 4 hours to scout and hang a stand. So we've been Google Earth scouting, trying to figure stuff out.
And Connor has never hung a tree stand, ever.
Ever, no. So our plan was, we got 3 of us. We're going to find 3 locations to hang tree stands, and we're going to hand stuff to each other, and Andy is going to help me set this thing up, right? Well, we get into this. It was a shithole. It's I'm thinking big hardwoods, big old, this big round trees, and it's scrub oaks that are this big around, canopies at 12 feet. Oh, man. So we're scrambling. We're trying to figure out, we got 4 hours. So when we got about an hour and a half left, we're just scramble, just go find a tree, just go hang your stuff in it. So I just go find a tree that I think is good. And I don't know how to use the ropes. I don't know how to use the safety harnesses. So I remember
you set your steps up upside down.
Yeah, I set my steps up upside down. When I'm hanging it, I have my legs wrapped around the tree. I've got ratchet straps in my mouth. I'm just struggling just to get this thing in the air. And I get it in the air and I get back to the truck and Drew's done. We're like, where's Andy?
Oh yeah.
Where's Andy? So we're waiting. We got to get out of here, and we're waiting for Andy. And I see Andy coming out of this crap scrub oak just dripping in sweat.
That was a funny encounter. I remember both your trees where you guys kind of set up. Yours was a disaster.
Yeah,
it
mine
was just never going to work.
Yeah.
It's a miracle you could even shoot your bow out of that.
Yeah.
I thought I was set to like got up there. I only had a little bit of time left to hang it, get up and realize that it's definitely not going to work. And I was like, here I am,
late.
like all organized. And I bet you there's tons of whitetail hunters that have done this. And we're not experienced tree stand whitetail hunters at this point in our career. And, but I'm much more organized here. I got my sticks and I got my like lone wolf pack stand, and, all my stuff, and it's all organized. And then by the time I got down from that tree, I just had I just had everything. I just like bear gripped, and I'm just like walking around just
hung
looking
in the
for the
briars
first straight tree I can get up in. I know that was
I kind of have learned to love that. I want to do things that are out of my comfort zone. It's at one point it was backpack hunting. At one point it was mule deer. At one point, so I just kind of like to push myself, and I think that's part of the reason that I have wanted to chase the big 9 is I just kind of want to see on different battlegrounds how I stack up and what I can learn from those to apply to different places.
Absolutely. That's where you and I resonate a little bit in that, I've already kind of had done that, but it was kind of out of necessity of I'm in a different country.
Yeah.
I'm so tied into that whole, I just want every and any opportunity I can get. And I'm prepared to do anything, whether it's a mountain hunt, a island hunt, a desert hunt, whatever. And then I've just learned to love that, that whole experience,
Yeah.
and you get that. And then of course now here we are, it's 2026, it's like, there's a part of like reminiscing about the old days where there were maybe arguably not always better populations, but it was less disturbed, less hunters, it seemed awesome. But now here we are also with pretty much every piece of equipment at our fingertip that really does change the game. But at the same time, opportunity is way less. However, stuff is more accessible. Like we can travel to any part of the world we want right now.
Yeah.
I mean, in a couple of days, you can pretty much be on any end of the planet, you know? So it's kind of fun. I've always kind of said to some people, there's a part of that where maybe the good old days are now, like right now, but you have to be prepared to go do anything and everything. And if that's your thing, and then there's also a beauty of just, I mean, I know people that all they hunt is turkeys, and I know people that all they hunt is whitetail, and they're content. And I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
I've gone off the deep end, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
Right anymore.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
I really
for sure.
can.
I see, like I told the guys I was hunting with this year, I'm like, I'm jealous that you get to, like, every weekend, you get to go out and you get to get in your stand and do that. That's not an opportunity.
Well, not only
that
you, depending on, even on public land, but private property, I've always loved, you've seen it with the antler world, because you can like start to recognize the same individual 1 year after the next, and obviously in like the whitetail hunting magazines and stuff like that, where people have start to develop a much more intimate relationship with a individual animal than we might do with a big mule deer that we happen to locate in the high country. And you might live with that deer for a whole summer scouting him. And so you do build up a different relationship, and sometimes over years, because there are some guys out here that have identified bucks and they've kept track of them for years and years, but it's also got public land. So you don't know whether that thing ever makes it or not. And however, but on a private property for whitetail, you're naming things.
Yeah.
You got nicknames for them. You're tracking. You've got a good idea of their age. That's fun.
But something that I also started thinking about this year was, so I really enjoy looking through cameras, and like I do
too.
The war part of whitetail. War is a bad word, but like the planning and the preparation and everything that goes into it's just the mental side of that game, right? Like I need to be here. I need to be here at this time to get a chance at this buck. And then he ends up down here and he hasn't done it. I very much enjoy that. But this year, I also started to think about how much I love the unknown, about going to a place not knowing, because when we were on that hunt we were talking about, where the first time I hung a stand, we are doing all day sits, right? We are not moving an inch. I am on the edge of my seat all day long because you never know. You have no idea what's there. You're totally going in blind. So I like that, because when I'm hunting one of the private places, it's like I know that buck when he comes in. I haven't ever seen that buck in my life besides on camera. I'm watching him from 1,000 miles away, but I know those deer as they come in. So I enjoy that part of it, but I also enjoy the unknown,
Hey, I'm for everything. Like, why limit yourself to just one?
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying. There's kind of a comfort and an enjoyment to kind of being a little more in control of that situation and kind of knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's an element of the unknown, which is fun to just go in, with,
you got to be ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all saw big bucks on that hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was at random times and random places and no shot, but it was like, I mean, at that place, you could literally have a 200-inch whitetail walk underneath you at any point.
For sure. There is something fun about being in an area that either has a very unique species or has something that's potentially kind of world-class of its species. You know, there's some places you go to hunt whitetail and, you start seeing a 130, 140-inch buck. It's awesome. You know? Like, it's awesome. However, there's some places like, just like, say someone comes here to the basin for the first time and they spend a couple of days and the next thing they pick their binos up and bam, there's an absolute giant, like a world-class 200+ inch deer. Yeah. That's kind of fun. It's fun and people explore that all over. That's not a new excitement for any hunter, to definitely have that. Or just the dream of, and honestly, having said all of that, you never know.
Yeah.
You kind of never know.
No.
Even on some of these properties you and I have hunted.
Yeah.
Hey, come the rut.
Yeah.
Something can turn up out of nowhere.
Yeah. That you've never seen before. Yeah. And I feel like elk especially too. I mean, elk it's really hard, I think, to find an elk and stick with them, especially with the way the season is. So
especially on public land. Yeah. That's the case. Very
and that's
much
kind of fun too, because it's like you get a bull start bugling. He could be a 240 5-point or he could be a 360 bull, and you don't know until he's in your lap.
Plus, you get to kind of guess. You listen to the bugle.
Yeah, and it's never
I've made
right.
so many funny mistakes with elk over the years. I mean, which is I guess let's talk about elk for a minute. Because it's another thing you've kind of cut your teeth on a little bit. And for me, it was a fun thing to come here and experience. Elk are one of the pinnacle animals of the United States. Like a really big bull is just one of the most impressive things you can see on the hoof. Yeah. Not only that, the way they act in their herds, the way they rut, and then it's one of the few animals really across the world, and there's lots, but it is one of the few that you can vocally interact with, which is another whole aspect of hunting. And it's even a little different than whitetail from the sense of like coaxing them in with bleats or rattling or something like. I mean, it's a little in the same era, but I mean, a bull that's like snotty at the nose, white-eyed, and pissed off is exciting.
It's pretty top tier. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that is like, there are vocal species, but that is just, I don't know.
And I didn't grow up with that, right? So in South Africa, and in hindsight, it's just because I didn't know, there are some species that you can. I mean, I remember when we kind of figured out calling in buffalo. Water buffalo in Australia. I mean, once I figured that out, and I obviously was not even close to the first, it's just I didn't know the other people that had already figured that out. Yeah. It wasn't well known. Yeah. Unlike elk, which is like we've known for decades that can be done.
They used to use gas hose to.
I mean, anything in there. Same with the whitetail guys. I mean, they'd figured that out 50 years ago. Yeah. They knew, all kinds of tricks with that. Yeah. And there are some species in Africa you can do that with. There's some really fun ones in Australia that are very vocal. That not necessarily you're not calling them in, but they're so vocal, like a fallow deer during the rut. is a primeval animal. I mean, it's croak, you know, and stalking in footstep as that thing's just pounding away is awesome. But the actual like fight or flight of an animal you're calling in that is coming, it's coming to fight you off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not coming in out of curiosity or anything like that. And it's a little more, you know, with a big whitetail buck, when it comes in to a rattle or something, obviously it's the same way, but it doesn't have that same energy of like when you have a bull come in the dark timber, get 10 yards on the other side of that pine and start to rip it to pieces.
Yeah.
You know,
and then they're loud animals. Like besides their vocalizations, just because of how big they are, they're loud. So when your bull is locked onto you and he's coming, you hear him coming from 200 yards. He's not saying a thing. He's just breaking branches and coming down that hill. Where a whitetail or anything else, it's a much more delicate.
It's calculated. And even once they get there, it's calculated. Yeah. You've seen whitetail come into decoys, you know, and posture and bull elk do that as well. But
when they commit, they come hard, fast.
Favorite elk encounter here, yours or someone else's? Well, it's just been. See if you can recall just an epic elk encounter.
This one I was not the hunter. Is a good friend of ours who are outfitters here. She had an archery tag, and she's like, "Will you call for me?" And I was like, "Yeah." So she had a private land only tag, so she's only allowed to hunt private land. But when we're talking about private land out here, it's much different. Private land here is actually a detriment. When you have a private land only tag here, it is a detriment because you're
limited by area.
Yeah, you're locked to 300 acres when it's surrounded by public land.
Unless you own a giant piece of public land, which is few and far between.
But in this situation, I'm like, okay, she's got a private land only tag. We've got access to this place. I'm going to go nuts. Like, I am not holding anything back. I'm just going to see what happens. So we get in there and I start cow calling and breaking trees and raking and I mean, I am just making an absolute mess in there. Bull starts coming in. Another bull bugles below us. He starts coming in. She hits one of the first two bulls that came in. I think it was the first one that came in, hit him high. But there were two more bulls from opposite directions. So we're in the middle, called the first bull in from here, the second bull in from here, and the third and fourth bull in from here. So in one crazy encounter, I called in 4 bulls to one spot. And I think they were just, they were like, what is going, like, what is all that noise? What's going on up there? So I kind of just threw caution to the wind and was just like, I'm going to pull everything out in my arsenal and see what happens. And it ended up working out. So that was definitely a cool encounter of, especially I really like being the caller because I have a little more ability to move and do some things. I usually am calling for myself. So to call for somebody else, I've got 2 free hands. I've got, you know, everything kind of at my fingertips, where if I'm doing it by myself, I've got a bow in hand, diaphragm in, and I'm trying to like call and move and call and move and get into a position where I can make a shot. So that was, I mean, I can sprint down the hill 50 yards and come running back up, breaking stuff. And I can't do that necessarily when I'm calling for myself. So that was definitely up there.
You killed a bull with your trad bow this year.
Yes.
I mean, way to go.
That was
how awesome is that?
That was
Connor last year had a shoulder injury. Finally decided, hey, I'm going to get this thing worked on. You've been shooting your bow a bunch.
Yeah.
And got your bow worked on. And then this spring started shooting a little bit, eased back into it. And Connor's like, hey, I think I'm going to try my trad bow this year. And then lo and behold, like 4 days in, it's just like, got one.
Day 2.
Day 2.
Yeah.
Nice.
Day 2. And that, I mean, that was an epic experience too. I mean, just like, I actually woke up late. So I got like a 2-hour drive into where I'm at. And then I got like a 45-minute walk to where I'm getting to. I woke up late and I almost was like, I can't go there. Like, I'm going to show up at just a horrible time. And I was like, nope. And I'm very particular about my scent, even though I realize that it doesn't, when the wind's wrong, right? But I'm very particular about my scent, especially when I'm by myself. So I usually shower in the morning. If I'm at home, if I'm not backpacking, I'm showering at home and unscented. My clothes are in an ozone bag. And so I just was like, nope, obviously don't have time to shower, do anything. I threw it all in the truck, and I probably wrecked my little Tacoma getting up that road. But
Just rallying.
I made it fairly fast. It was actually perfect timing when I got to where I wanted to start hiking in, and I started hiking in. I got about halfway to where I wanted to be, bull bugles. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to make a noise. Like I kind of know where he's going to be about. And I know there's one ridge that I can get to that's kind of a bald knob that I can really locate. If I get another bugle off there, I can really locate where they're going to be.
Where he is.
So I get to that point, and I just cow called, and he bugled, and I was like, boom, got in on top. And I actually had time as he was coming in. I knew he was kind of committing. I cow called one more time. I moved up like 60 yards. And I knew I had time, so I popped my bino harness off because I didn't want that to mess with my draw as the with the stick bow. And he just came running down the hill. And the cool thing about trad is I don't have to range. Like it's all instinctual, so I don't have to spend the time ranging. Like I know what's in range and I know what's out of range. Yeah. And he comes sprinting down the hill, draw back, shoot. And I don't hear the thwack. I don't hear like the compound, the rifle kind of smack to
arrow impact. Yeah.
So I'm like, I just missed. Bull runs off, and I'm like, great. Another bull starts bugling up on the hill. I'm like, okay, well, at least I'm going to get another chance. And I knock another arrow. I cow call at that bull. And I'm like, I got to check. Can't do it. So I set my bow down, quit calling at that bull. And I'm like, now I'm running the risk of if I did hit that bull, blowing him out totally and not finding him again. But I have to know because I didn't hear the thwack. I just kind of went into a blackout phase as I shot. I don't even know, where I held, if I got to full draw, whatever. Like, it's just like,
it's a blur.
So I start walking out, and I'm looking around for my arrow, don't see my arrow. And I just hear him, and I look up, and there's a bull running away. And I'm like, I mean, he went 50 yards maybe. And I look and I see there's blood all over this aspen tree. And I'm like, okay, well, I hit him. Now he's going to go 2 miles because I just blew him out of his bed. So I go back, and I'm like 45 minutes because I had an experience with an elk once that I got in there too early, and I didn't find him until 3 o'clock the next day. And that was a learning experience for me where I was like, I'll never do that again. I've watched stuff die in sight, and I still wait 30 to 45 minutes to go get it. So I waited and got out there, still couldn't find my arrow, and started blood tracking, and looked pretty good. I mean, it looked like a little different colored than what I was hoping for, but it looked pretty good. 150 yards later, that bull's just
piled up.
Yeah. Laying right there, dead. So it was clean pass through, shooting like a 650 grain arrow. And it all worked out just right.
Yeah, man, that was epic. That's pretty cool. I've never killed an elk with my trad bow, and it's on the list for sure. And a challenging thing to do. Yeah. An elk actually with a bow, any bow is an accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, especially, and I'm talking pressured public land elk.
Yeah,
I'm not talking the great states and the great privates. But that applies to all species.
Yeah.
So that was epic. That was pretty fun.
That was
Connor's kind of got a bit of the trad bug over the last few years, kind of been diving into that. And I had trad hunted for a long time early on, because I'd quickly evolved through like doing the compound right at the beginning, but knowing nothing, early on with crap equipment and no guidance and terrible form and evolving through that quickly until I was like, I got this. Like, what's next?
What's longbow. The next hardest
what's
thing?
After longbow? Spear. Like, what's after that? Blowgun, kind of. And I really got into the whole trad world. And, but then I veered off that again and then but it's always been a great interest of mine. As you know, I got a collection of bows and freaking everything that goes with it. And Connor and I have shot trad bows for a while, but in the last couple of years we've dedicated a couple of hunts because there's also a point where just kind of your own personal goals gets to a point where it's like, okay, I've ticked a couple of these boxes. It's like, how do I make this more fun? How do I make it more challenging or rewarding? It doesn't really matter the reason. It's kind of nice to just change things up. I mean, you've done it with, tell us about, you shot a 6x6 several years ago with a really old Winchester rifle. What was the story on that?
Yeah, so I had a rifle tag, and it was one that I picked up late, which is kind of a theme of mine, and it's 5-day season. It's first rifle. Hunted 4 days, got my ass kicked. And mind you, I am hunting with these 4 days. I'm hunting with a 300 Weatherby that I'm capable of shooting 600-700 yards, right? So it wasn't like I went into this.
Oh, I thought you went into the whole thing with a 100-year-old Winchester.
So I kept it in my truck, but every time I went to leave my truck, I'm like, yeah, I grab the big gun. So I got flat out my ass kicked. So I'm thinking, I've killed all these elk with my bow now, and I'm getting much better, and I kind of know what I'm doing. Super hot, no rut activity. It was brutal. And on the last day, good friend of mine texted me, and he was like, I glassed up a bull. And I'm like, he's a pretty good bull. And he's like, yeah, he's probably 300. I mean, he's a nice 6-point. And I meet up with him. He's like, they went into that patch timber right there. So I sat there for a couple hours, didn't come out. And once again, back to the scent thing, I'm probably 45 minutes to an hour away from my house. I was like, it's 70 degrees outside. I was like, they're not going anywhere. I ran home. I took an unscented shower, put my clothes in the ozone bag, went back out there, and I had called my dad, and I'm like, Dad, there's a pretty nice bull here in this patch timber, and I'm gonna take the 348 Model 71 Winchester. He's like, no, don't do it. And my dad's Winchester now, right? He's like, don't do that. He's like, that's a nice bull. Just go kill the bull. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to do it. He's like, I think you're an idiot. But, if...
For those that aren't sure, what are we talking here? Well, what's this gun?
The Winchester.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Model 71 made in like 1931. And it's in a 348 caliber, which is...
We're talking 100-year-old gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
220 grain bullet. I mean, it's a hammer. Yeah.
A lever action.
Lever action. Yep.
Okay.
And so I felt comfortable to about 80 is what I was figuring, open sights. It's like things start to get pretty covered with open sights beyond 80 yards. So that's where I felt comfortable. I called another friend of mine, and I was like, I'm going to go in here and try to kill this bull with a Winchester. Will you sit on the other hill where I should have probably been from shooting the Weatherby, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, if I blow this up, I just want to know where they go. So he comes out, and he told me, he's like, I think you're an idiot too. I don't know why you'd do this. And I was like, I've got all this spot and stock practice with mule deer now, and that's what I'm gonna try to do, So I get up there, I start working into that patch of trees, and I'm usually a little preemptive in pulling my shoes off. I just am really careful about my noise, so I pulled them off way too early. And most of the time, this is hilarious, but I'll hunt in Nike tennis shoes because I call them white man moccasins because they're very soft. And so I kick off my shoes, get into this patch of timber, and I start calling nothing. It's only like, this patch of timber is like 250 yards long. And so call, work up 40 yards. Call 10 minutes, 15 minutes, nothing, work up. So I'm getting to the edge of this timber, and I know they're going to be in the top third of that timber because they want to bail at the top, right? Okay. They're not going to be at the bottom. They don't want threats coming from the top. So that's where they're going to be. So I'm like, okay, I probably have 75 yards of timber left, and I'm in this top third. And
instead of second guessing yourself.
Yeah, oh, totally. I'm like, I don't even know if they're in here, And so, because I had gone home, so I was like, maybe they left while I got in here, but I'm still gonna do my due diligence. And so I start getting closer, bump a cow, and she's at like 40 yards, something like that. And I'm like, oh crap! And I just lay down, and I start cow calling. Well, that commotion of that cow standing up and then hearing that cow call, that bull was like, absolutely not. Stood up, started checking it out. So I call at that bull one more time. he bugles. That's the first time and the only time he bugled. He bugled and it was kind of like a lazy, like he just woke up, kind of a lazy bugle, and he starts working in. I see him at 70, 60, 50. I can't get a shot. 40, 30, 20. I still can't get a shot. And he's coming below me trying to get my wind.
Yeah.
And I am on a downed log. I'm like, he's going to come through here. And he went behind one big tree at about 20 yards. And I flipped my barrel to the other side, came into 3 yards, and I shot him. And he
just point blank.
I mean, that's bayonet awesome. Would have been awesome. But he takes that bullet and starts wheeling downhill. We used to shoot lever action 22s growing up. So that was awesome because it was like, same thing. It's like second nature, right? I stand up, jack another one in, hit him again, and he just piles up right there. Both those shots are right there close. I mean, he's 15 yards away from me,
wow.
Dead. And I remember just letting out like a primal yell, you know, like I'd obviously killed elk close with a bow, but that felt so natural and it felt so cool. And especially with my family having the history with like Winchesters and, you know, being collectors and being rifle hunters and stuff like that, I just thought it was just a really cool thing, you know?
Yeah, what a fun story and what a cool encounter. And I think you and I both have, there's a romance to that, right?
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I always had that with the trad bow. You see these old photos of, you know, how epic it is with some old timer standing there with a lever action or a longbow or something, you know, and you kind of want a little piece of that, you know, and kind of explore that.
It feels good to like step back in time like that, you know.
It adds a new challenge. It also opens a new opportunity where, you know, let's say you're an experienced hunter and you've killed a bunch of animals. Well, you might be more prepared to it's like you rekindle a bit of the excitement of a hunt where, let's say you were sitting back on that hill and a immature 5-point walked out. You would feel very different about like, well, I can kill him from here. I'm 300 or 400 yards away, and you know, but all of a sudden you change that up and you go in there with a 100-year-old lever action or a bow or whatever it is that you want to do. Yeah. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun even in this day and age. Kind of, I mean, again, like there was no option in the past to jump forward,
right?
But we have an option right now to jump back, right, which is kind of cool,
and which is what we've done. You know, it's like we're hunting stick bows and lever actions. Like you killed that buck with that was an old British Army.
No, that rifle was a CZ 550 full stock rifle, but the caliber was 9.3. Yeah, exactly, kind of like a Mannlicher. That action was common in like for professional hunters in South Africa. It was just a common, cheap, reliable guide rifle.
But that's one of your probably favorite deer because of that.
A fun one. Plus, having tracked it down, it was kind of one of those cool encounters where, you know, had some kind of snow melts off, it's muddy conditions, and in the area I was in, and tracking we'll get into because it's kind of a interesting one, and I do think there's a lack of understanding and ability 100%. in North America in general. It's everywhere actually. It just, when you have worked in places like Australia and South Africa where you've got just very proficient trackers, and then like seeing someone that has
knowledge,
no idea what they're doing when they're tracking.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously tracking something through like the mud in that scenario or snow is pretty straightforward, but when the conditions are very difficult, it's an amazing art. And that's a fun thing, you know. So that was one of those ones where I cut some tracks. You know, I'd already last the whole morning, cut these tracks, and I'm just thinking like, well, I don't know what they are, but
it's a buck.
I'm gonna follow them. Yeah, you know, like I'm gonna follow them, and followed that buck all the way to his bed, and I had that open sight 9.3 by 62 rifle, and it was really fun.
I think that's awesome. Like we've talked about this a lot, but just I want to be proficient in every weapon possible. You know, not that that opportunity is going to rise all the time, but I don't want an opportunity to come up and they're like, you have to hunt it with this weapon, and I'm like, well, I don't know how to hunt it with that weapon. You know, I want to be from top to bottom proficient in whatever I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I've always just enjoyed all aspects of it, you know, so it's kind of fun to, You know, it's like, okay, how do I get proficient with the pistol? And how do I get proficient with an open sight rifle? And how do I, you know, even I dived into the long range thing. You know, my family also have been into guns forever. You know, they've always reloaded. You know, they were marksmen. You know, whether it was in the army or professionally, and you know, it's always kind of just been like, yeah, you can. There's levels to this game.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like you can really dive into it, and I've had fun with that. I mean, I've got some huge long range guns that I dabble with, and it is kind of funny because guys are like, well, you're hunting with a longbow, but you own a couple of like giant 338 rifles that you can shoot a mile with
that you don't hunt with,
that I don't hunt with. Yeah, but I love that, you know, just exploring another.
When you can't master, like it literally takes a lifetime to master one weapon. So it's like when I'm talking about being proficient with a weapon, I am very far from the top tier who are good with that weapon. You know what I mean? Like you can get as heavy or as light into that.
Yeah, you totally could. But there's also just an enjoyment of the process.
Yeah.
Right. Just, you know, it's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to learn that and go through that.
And I think I've kind of fallen away from rifle hunting because I've experienced like the intimacy of lever actions and bows and stuff like that. It's not that I don't like rifle hunting. I don't get the same feeling that I do being close. I can still get that feeling, but I have to put it on myself to bring an old gun and do it the way that I want to do it, which I've learned in the last couple of years. It's more important to me to do it the way that I want to do it, you know, than it is about the size of the animal that I've killed, which is a recent revelation in my life, you know?
Yeah. And that's a moving goalpost, and people have different goals, and it's a discussion for another time, because we can dive into that whole setup, especially for any new hunters that are listening to this and encounter us. I mean, that's something that's resonated with you and I for a long time, is going through all these different weapons, different choices, and then also being exposed to this world of you and I kind of coming from, it was just the norm to grow up doing it, to now the world of social media, or the world of, you know, being connected to everybody, and, you know, these people with very specific opinions, or these specific camps of like rifle hunting versus bow hunting versus crossbow hunting, not into duck hunting, you know, like, I mean, it's just, and then kind of trying to step back and see the bigger picture in all of this, and see, and that also comes into the like trophy hunting versus meat hunting, and, or, you know what I mean? Like, like we've like, although society is kind of like that anyway these days, where it's a bit divided and grouped up and broken, where it is, I hope we can shed some light on just a broader point of view of, you know, whether it's just your interest, whether, like you said, it's like, it's more important like how I do it than why I do it, or it's more important about, you know, the experience than it is just the specific end goal of a score for an animal, or stuff like that. And in saying that, I just don't think there's a right and a wrong way to, you know, I just don't get in those camps, you know, and we've all been guilty of it to some degree. You know, you kind of get into a thing, and it's easy to kind of rib the compound guys if you're shooting a stick bow, and then the rifle guys are ribbing, you know what I mean? Like, sure, I've been there, but I'm tiring of the
because it's important to you to do it the way you want to do it, right? Like I don't really care what anybody else thinks of the way that I hunt, as long as I am doing it the way that I want to do it, right?
Yeah, but in today's world, you know, you've got some people that people are aspiring to or looking up to, or they're just getting some stuff shoved down their throats, where it's like, you need to do it this way, and this is the way it should be done. And, you know, hopefully some people can get some perspective, especially younger hunters and new hunters, where it's like, that doesn't actually matter. You know, think more broadly about what it is we're doing and why we're doing it, and get less tangled in this whole world of, you know, one camp or another.
Yeah. And you have to take a step back. Like almost all of my hunts where I found the most success is a struggle that I start looking around on, the tail end of a hunt where I've just been so focused on killing a big bull, killing a big buck, killing something in general, where I kind of lose why I'm out there in the first place. And I'm not kidding, probably 90% of the time, when I finally let go of that is when I find success. Like I look around and I'm like, I am so blessed to be doing what I want to do, have the body to be able to do it. Look at what I've got to experience this last week that a very small percentage of people on the planet will ever be able to experience. That is a win. And then that's when the win really comes, where it's like, I have already won. So when an animal finally presents an opportunity, that's just a cherry on top.
Yeah.
And I still am guilty of that every year of just being like, I got to do it. I got to do this but it,
hey, it's a broad spectrum. It's a really, and I've ruminated on this for a long time, right? Being exposed to, hunting for a long time and watching other people hunt. There's just no like right or wrong answer to some of this is really where I'm at, like variables change and the reasons people do it change. And, I think that's kind of fun. It's fun. The fluidity of it is fun, but then there's also like which I think is a little tricky now because there's also an ethic to it, right? There's like, what standard do you hold yourself to, even though you might be bouncing from one species to another, one weapon to another, the size of the animal, and all these different variables. In that same vein comes the like, well, and I don't know if maybe everyone does or not, but I've always ruminated on like, am I comfortable with what I've done? You know what I mean? Like, and
you have
really,
to look at that thing.
I think you really do, and that's not something that anyone else can put on you. It's like the whole ethics thing.
Right.
Ethics is a more individual thing than people realize. Yeah.
Because it's not always by the letter of the law. Like my rule for myself is, if I draw blood, I either find that animal again and I kill him, or I eat the tag.
By the way, I was really impressed this year. Sorry to bring up a sore topic, but you shoot your big target buck this year.
Yeah, whitetail.
Connor texts me, shoots his buck after putting a good effort in on it, and you don't know. It's a variable. It's early in the morning. You shoot it. Ultimately, you wound the buck, right? And off you go, and I'm chatting with you and we've discussed the whole scenario and bits and pieces. You spend 5 days looking for this deer, which
pounding timber with the ticks and the briars. Yeah.
Yeah. Hats off to you, man. Congrats. I mean, honestly, there's a win there. Obviously, of course, you already understand what's occurred and how much effort you'd put in to get to that point, and that is going to occur. It doesn't matter. I mean, if I've kind of always said this because I've had a couple of other young guys recently chat to me and be like, like, I've never seen you wound anything or something. I was like, I'll tell you right now, like, if someone ever, and I'll make a statement, I'll stand on this hill.
Yeah.
If someone tells you that they're an experienced hunter and they have never wounded something, they're either lying about how much they've hunted, or they're lying about the fact that they haven't wounded something.
Totally.
That is just a reality. Like, I'm sorry.
And it is
just going to occur.
It's a humbling experience that I think is necessary.
It's also part of the process. There is a reality that in life in general, like all these things, like you can live in an ideal, but these things occur, right? Yeah. It's just the probability of something going wrong after enough repetition is very probable.
Game of inches. Like that's what you were telling me when I hit that buck it's a game of inches. I could have been an inch higher and that buck could have piled up and 50 yards, or I spend 5 days looking for
him. And I'd love to explore that on a different podcast and talk to some people. We've got interesting contacts with people that have been, that have I don't know what do you call them here in the States, like a slaughterhouse, like an abattoir,
butcher.
Yeah, butcher.
Yeah.
Butcher. Cut up a lot of animals. There's lots of guides that get that experience. There's a lot of value in your whole game of inches where, knowing that. But back to my point there, you basically just cutting your tag up and committing to looking for that thing, and in all likelihood after the assessment that buck probably survived, but you never know, unless you happen to re-find him again.
Never saw him on camera again. It just felt like
still, that takes and only you can do that, right? Only you can kind of be like, here's where I'm at. This is what's happened. And either you pretend it doesn't and you carry on hunting but then you don't tell anyone, maybe, where you got to live with yourself, which some people are prepared to do and some are not. And, I really thought it was a cool thing that you just stuck that out and made the effort, and a better person for it ultimately, because you also learn a lot in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have walked away from some stuff where I've lost an animal or wounded something. There's a lot to explore, right?
5 days
in your own mind.
In the timber by yourself.
Oh,
yeah. Mind's rolling.
It's an experience. Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes it has worked out though, where that persistence after hitting something, the last velvet mule deer that I killed, I made a mistake. When they stand, if I'm close, if I'm in range, I'm going to draw. But that may mean you have to hold full draw for 10 seconds. That may mean you have to hold full draw for 5 minutes. When that buck stood, he was facing directly almost away from me, like slightly quartered, and I'm at full draw and I'm at like 52 or something, which I'm very comfortable making that shot. So I thought, and I try to hold it where I can slide it in behind that back rib. Grazed his rib cage. So I totally missed vitals. It just skipped along his rib cage, cut him open. Took me 5 days to find that buck again. I found him in a place that I hadn't ever seen him before, hadn't even looked for him. I found him there and ultimately snuck in and killed him there. But I feel great about that. You know what I mean? I feel really great about the effort that I put in. So now I look at that buck, like I made a mistake. Not only did I learn from that mistake and I'll never do that again, but I ended up pursuing him, persevering, finding him and killing him. And that's something that I'm super proud of. And he's my smallest velvet deer,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun thing to experience and hold yourself to, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely. So, and not everybody has to, it's what you feel in your heart is what I've come to know. Like I don't want to do this for anybody else besides myself. Cause if you start hunting to brag or show off or, show people, oh, this is what you did just for your ego, I think that's dangerous territory.
As with all behavior in life, it doesn't just apply to hunting, and there's sometimes lesson to be learned on both sides of that spectrum, for sure. But I totally agree. And it's one of the things we discussed early on in kind of talking about, like, hey, should we do a podcast? Should we start discussing this kind of stuff? And one of the things was like, obviously we're doing a podcast, so we're like now in the mix of just putting this out there, but media. It's for you and I to explore anyway and learn from. And if someone can learn from it and, can inspire someone to be involved in something or just learn with us as part of the evolution, awesome. And one of those things was rediscussing some of these topics that you don't see the other side of, right? You always see the polished version of everything, Yeah. I mean, you can go on my Instagram. Like, I'm not posting all my mess ups,
and that's what I was going to say.
But I understand what that is, and some people see that, and some people don't. Here we are. It's 2026. I think people now are getting back to full circle of like, what's organic, what is, what is just
what's real.
Like, let's get rid of all this fluff and what do we? And then there's also a breakdown of an old structure of a hunting camp per se, right? Where, on social media, when I see something from someone else, I'm seeing such a tiny snippet of what occurred that it's very difficult to give insight or give positivity, or it's very easy to give negativity or so on and so forth, right? Whereas if you and your buddies are pretty in tune with each other like you and I are, and in most of our circle, right?
Yeah.
Pretty honest with each other on like what's happening. We're not worried about what the other is going to think. We're just trying to, evolve together with the process. And that's a bit of a dying breed, I've felt like, where, back in hunting camp, even like my upbringing was a good example of like, it wasn't a hunting camp, but my grandparents had rules,
Yeah.
They had their own ethics about what occurred with their property, and it's kind of an interesting one because everyone has their own. It's like when you're duck hunting. It's like can you shoot ducks on the water, or they got to be on the wing, and so on and so forth. And this evolves, but in the hunting camps, it might be, and here's the thing, right? It's not like there's just this like definite set in stone. It's a bit of an evolution, right? You make a mistake and, you see how someone explores how they deal with that and how they represent themselves after the fact. And then also kind of a discussion of like, hey man, next time you maybe shouldn't have done this, or if this occurs again, consider trying this and this and this, right? And so you get this kind of, this camp mentality will breed out into kind of an ethos that runs through a group, right?
Yeah.
The world of some of our new hunters that are younger than us now, I feel like I've lost that a little bit, because there's lots of guys now hunting that didn't grow up like you and I hunted, where like obviously your granddad hunted, your dad hunted. He's particular about how he wants certain things done and how he feels about certain things. And then obviously you and I have got, even here in the basin, friends of ours that are very experienced outdoorsmen. They have a particular opinion on what it is. And so we're constantly like taking pieces of like, okay, I understand how you feel about that and why, and I'm gonna either apply some of it to myself or not, or maybe I'm gonna evolve that even further. And what I learned from this old guy, I want to pass on and maybe make sure that other people that are in my circle aspire to as well, and collectively build that. But the online, little bits of just like, hey, hurrah, yes, big this, that.
Yeah.
I do think for some of the guys that didn't experience that, they're missing a lot of information that's very important.
Definitely.
I think.
Yeah. Cause I mean, traditionally you didn't hunt for the reasons a lot of people hunt for today, you know what I mean? And I think the trophy part of thing, I mean, obviously everyone wants to kill a big animal, but that's kind of been dominating this social media sphere, and I have become content, and this year especially, that was one of those things, like the stick bow elk and then the mule deer I shot this year with a different lever action Winchester. I was content shooting a smaller animal, doing it the way that I wanted to do it, right? The reason I went to that stick bow elk was I was, for 3 years, I'm like, I'm killing a 330 bull with my bow. If I don't kill a 330 bull, I'm just going to eat my tag and come home. I ate a lot of tags, right? I had one encounter with a bull that would have, broke that line, and just couldn't make it happen. And I'm like, I'm not learning enough each year just chasing one, a class of animal. So that's why I was like, I'm going to grab my stick bow. I'm going to shoot the first legal bull that I call in, and I had a blast because I got to go hunt. And kind of what that stems from is when I had my moose tag last year, I ran into a friend of mine. He's a game warden in Colorado. And he was hunting, and he just had his muzzleloader. He's just walking around, and I was like, "What are you hunting?" He's like, "I'm hunting deer." And I'm like, "Are you particular?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I'll shoot a four-corner." And I looked at him, and I'm like, "That looks like so much fun. Like that's the essence of hunting. He's just hunting, right? Doesn't know what's there, content shooting anything." And that it looks like a very stress-free hunt. He's just doing what he likes to do.
The reality of that also is you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
So at least make sure you please yourself.
That's
just
it.
Make sure you're content with how and why you're doing it, and kind of forget the rest. Because there's also those that kind of get on the side of like, oh, well, you're dropping to a lesser weapon just to allow yourself. It's
right.
like, sure. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And they want to do something. It's like, there's no right or wrong, really. You know, there's a broad spectrum. We don't have to totally just pin ourselves into certain camps, you know,
and it
there's
just makes
less
me
tolerance
feel good.
for that.
You know, it made me, I had one of the greatest hunting seasons I've ever had with some of the hardest lessons I've ever had, which we'll dive into in different podcasts. I spent time in Newfoundland and
cool experience. I'm keen to hear about that.
So I learned some really, really hard lessons. So I got some of the highest highs and the lowest lows that I've ever had in this specific year of hunting, which, like you said, I feel like is very important, because when you're looking at social media, you only see the highs, right? So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast was there are lows that people don't talk about. And I think it's very important to discuss those lows, because either you're helping somebody through that time, you're helping somebody not make a mistake, because mistakes do happen. And
I thought about that right at the beginning of this podcast. You said, you know, like introducing when your dad was introducing you to hunting with the antelope thing, and you know, you didn't want to expose them to that hardship at the beginning, because it's kind of too much to.
May turn them off forever.
It could be off-putting. And at the same time, in my mind, I thought of like some of my most memorable encounters have been the shitty, sucky time. They are fun, man. Like you get to like, there's a lot of fun in that actually. Like the hardship becomes a real fun part of the experience. Definitely. As odd as that sounds,
because it is part of the circle. It makes you go full circle having that. If it's all cherries and rainbows all the time, it's not that fun. You know, the reward is sweeter after misses, mess ups, you know, that getting it done after the struggle is the best feeling that I've had.
Think about this, right? I mean, I've, you know, in some of your like most vivid hunting memories, honestly, and a couple of older friends and I have discussed this, the ones that stick out the most for me were the ones that either were missed opportunities, right? Great opportunities, like the big ones that got away, right?
Yeah.
I remember those more vividly than really great animals that everything went right.
Yeah. It all like just lined up.
Yeah. Which was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But in your head, the one that pops up when you're thinking about something late at night, you're like, that just keeps reoccurring.
I know, it just puts a pit in your stomach.
Which is kind of fun. And then the other is just enduring some hardship. There's something I feel like in everybody, not just guys, men and women, that there's kind of there's something about enduring a hardship and then reminiscing about it that is fun. It's part of the instinct, you know, like there's going to be some suffering at some point, and you know, it's kind of fun. It's funny because you suffer in the moment, knowing full well that when it's over, how fun it's going to be to like think back on, especially once you've done it a few times. I mean, you've been in mountain camps,
though, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
like, I'm still pretty hurt after this year, what? You know, about Newfoundland and about my whitetail experience this year, you know.
I've got some from years ago that I'll never forget about.
Yeah, and it's like now, like you're at the point now where you can look back fondly on those memories, but when I am just sitting, like it'll just randomly pop into my head. I'll be sitting there doing something, and I'm literally just like physical pain in my stomach.
Hey, I had one last year. Last year that, I mean, that was so bad. It's almost like my body's doesn't even want to accept that it went wrong.
It just want to ignore that and push it to the back of your mind forever.
That never ever happened.
I mean, I would like to. I mean, I think now is a good time. I think you should tell that if you want to.
I don't know if we should. Let's save that one.
Okay, all right.
Let's save that one.
Okay, I mean, and the only reason we're not talking about these now is because these are full length episodes that we're talking about. I mean, maybe not full length, but these stories are gonna take a while.
Yeah, man, we've got all kinds of fun stuff to explore, and that's what we're gonna do on this podcast. You know, from here on out, we've got some interesting guests lined up that we're gonna chat to. As we kind of progress with this, hit us up if you guys know some people that you think will resonate with yourself and us, that we're going to talk, you know, just send us some suggestions on that. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I think we were going to explore.
Because we want to cover like all weapons, all species. I mean, that's the whole premise of this, is diving deep into things that are unknown to us or unknown to other people.
Well, there's going to be a lot of listeners that know, right? You know, so we get to learn from that. There's going to be a lot of listeners that just enjoy kind of the process and maybe ruminating on an idea and exploring it, and maybe you and I will bounce some of those backwards and forwards because we don't agree on everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of stuff that we're going to explore there, and I'm excited about it. And I think there's some stuff that will just be entertaining and beneficial, you know, for guys to think about, because we've got some pretty different perspectives on things, which is kind of fun. You know, it's not just couple whitetail hunters or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. I'm kind of jealous of some of the guys
I know.
just keen whitetail hunters.
I mean, two totally different upbringings, but now in the same place, pursuing the same game, and then at the same time diving into things that neither of us have never experienced before.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And going back over, you know, some of the crazy experiences with the guiding you've done, the guiding I've done. I've had so many epic encounters. I've met very interesting people. Been very, very fortunate to kind of have gone all over the world with that.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, through the basin and the people you've been tied to here and the history of the store, like some really interesting, really, really influential people, even to both of us now.
Yeah.
You know, friends of yours that you knew for a long time that are influential to me as well. And yeah, it's fun. Well, what else do you want everyone to know as we go forward?
Not much.
Okay. Well, here we are. The warthog. No.
Wolverine and the warthog.
Wolverine and the warthog. Rocky Mountains in South Africa. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully that was a interesting episode, and appreciate you sharing kind of some of that. It's fun to, I mean, there was some stuff there that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's fun, and I'm excited to explore some other stories and
for sure
go from there.
Yeah. No, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in.
See you guys next time.